In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
I believe in the sand beneath my toes. The beach gives a feeling, an earthy feeling. I believe in the faith that grows, and the bow I goes can make.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed. If you would vote for that, people may not feel so confident that they're safe with you.
Good.
This is not crazy. This is legitimate feelings of fear of you and a feeling that you might not be someone they could trust. If this thing goes way south, autocracies go south real fast.
Hey, good.
Shut up, bitch!
Things get ugly and people get asked to do things and turn people in and point people out and turn on them.
Fuck around and find out.
If you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, I think you're kind of missing the point of what people are upset about. They're afraid. Autocracy and fascism are things that are legitimate to be afraid of.
Stop being such a pussy.
I doubt it.
You are fake news.
I will eat your ass.
Very fake news.
I'll do it. That's a big game, man.
You sound like a hysterical, bleeping, snowflake, lesbo bleep.
Well, it's not my concern.
All right, America, go to the YouTube right now.
Skag free whoever he is.
Dude, Matt straight up sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
I can't do it.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live for Sunday, November 24th, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. Later in the show, my friend Matt Palumbo from Bongino Report will join to break down the latest with the Trump cabinet picks with me. We'll get to that at the bottom of the hour. In other news tonight, the defense has rested in the Daniel Penny trial in Manhattan this Friday. Actually, they rested their case. This, of course, is essentially the Derek Chauvin George Floyd sequel trial. We'll see if the verdict will be any different. For the first time through that trial, we're also seeing Daniel Penny's police interview that happened right after the incident with Jordan Neely as well. Get into that. Elon Musk, the last few days, has been teasing that he may buy MSNBC. Is all of that just memes, or is there something serious to it? Take a look at that. Lauren Southern testifies before the Canadian House of Commons about the Tenet Media controversy, and she decides to challenge politicians and answer their questions for about an hour. So I'll take a look at that. And then later, to close the show, I've got Hoax Hate, including an update in the fake cross-burning and N-word vandalism from the Colorado Springs mayor. Shockingly, my genius prediction from last week that the mayor had nothing to do with that story was proven to be correct, it seems, according to investigation. Not that that was a difficult prediction to make, but we'll revisit the story. And I'll catch up with your super chats as well, $10 and up on the Sunday show, of course. Because I am a no-good, low-down money grabber, our friend Knuckle Hunky Buck will join to read Super Chat once again, as is a Sunday tradition. And speaking of, hey, if you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month over on my website. That's mattchristiansenmedia.com, or, of course, mattis.gay, if you prefer brevity. Listener support is what keeps this show operational. And of course, it is hugely appreciated. There are perks available for higher levels of support as well. mattchristiansenmedia.com/support, linked in the description. And we also have to say hello to our friendly listener-owned businesses as well. This week's feature business is our friends over at Hope Innovations. Have you ever wanted to grow your own garden, but you didn't feel like you had the space? With food prices rising and chemicals being added to our food every day, you might consider adding a hydroponic garden system to your home. Grow clean and fresh produce all year round with the Eden Tower from Hope Innovations. When it comes to growing your own food, invest in the best system out there and discover the joy of regularly having freshly harvested salads, homegrown herbs, tomatoes, peppers, and more with your very own hydroponic system. Engineered to be elegant and practical, the Eden Tower stands above the competition with its patented cup system that allows you to drop a seed and go. You do not need a green thumb to easily grow delicious and nutritious food. You can get $200 off an Eden Tower hydroponics kit from Hope Innovations through a listener-exclusive link available only on my website. Head on over to mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals and find the Hope Innovations section. Click the link for $200 off an Eden Tower hydroponics kit and get started growing your own food easily and simply today. Find everything you need from our friends at Hope Innovations, plus other great offers from the rest of my friendly listener-owned businesses like Hero Soap Company, Western Razor Company, Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing, and more. That's at mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners, for listeners. And speaking of our friends at Hero Soap Company, they have just launched the Freedom Box in time for the holidays. It's a great gift option for Christmas. The Freedom Box features 4 new exclusive soaps, all inspired by the triumphs of American history: Boston Tea Party, Overmountain, Frontiers, and Liberty Cleanse, exclusive to the Freedom Box. You can get all 4 when you pick up a Freedom Box from Hero Soap Company, now shipping. Remember, listeners of this show get 10% off everything at Hero Soap. Promo code MC Listener. One piece of housekeeping before we get into the news. But this show will continue on Wednesday night. Sickness pending. I say that because my whole family is sick right now. My 2 boys are sick. My wife is sick. I'm trying to fight off the sickness. I don't have any symptoms so far. But come Wednesday, we'll see how it is. But as of now, I plan to do the show the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. It'll probably be a little bit of an abbreviated show, maybe closer to an hour than 2 hours or 3 hours, say. But I do intend to take some calls as well. So if you are a caller of the show, we'll do the show as usual on Wednesday, even if it's a little bit shorter, and I'll be happy to take your calls then, in addition to break down whatever the news of the week is. Now, of course, most importantly on this show, we chronicle hilarious sports names that sound like slurs and make play-by-play guys tremble in fear of getting fired for saying them. And, of course, I'm still waiting for the big NFL break for former Navy midshipman linebacker Diego Fagot. He will get his chance one day. It's been a rough few years for Diego. More recently, though, of course, there is Pittsburgh State Gorillas fullback Luke Nigaman with some very impressive touchdown highlights.
Luke Nigaman!
In fact, my sources say that he's been named the MIAA Special Teams Player of the Week as of last week. So last we checked in with Luke Nigaman. He is still playing at a high level. And who could ever forget, of course, the standout high school linebacker in Indiana and commit for the fall of 2025 to Eastern Michigan University, Noah Kaniga. Well, thanks to a listener down under, I am now aware of a soccer player for the Central Coast Mariners. This is Sabit Ngor, I think is how you say it. He is a Kenyan refugee who now plays for the team, the Central Coast Mariners, and is apparently having a very good season. Here are some announcers recently attempting to say his very dangerous name in different ways. Is it Sabit Ngor? Is it Sabit Ngor?
It's here for the substitute, Sabit James Ngor, and that's a really well-taken goal.
Sabit Ngor gave Central Coast fans something to smile about when he came onto the ground after half-time on Sunday. The young attacker got on the ball 28 times in the second half, including 3 touches in the opposition box.
And Ngor, he's got the golden touch at the moment, Sabit Ngor.
He said the N-word.
The N-word! You know what the N-word is?
Godspeed to all the Aussie play-by-play guys. And of course, we wish a successful season to Sabit Ngor or Sabit Ngor, whatever his name is, and the Central Coast Mariners Football Club. Now, in another listener contribution, I think this might be the most California story ever to California. Now, of course, this election cycle, Californians voted decisively to crack down on crime by undoing Proposition 47 from back in 2014. They're going to punish repeat theft in California now. They booted the LA district attorney, George Gascon, who was notoriously light on crime. San Francisco Mayor London Breed got the boot. I personally was in San Francisco within the last few weeks, and dare I say, I think they have cleaned up some of the camps. It looked a little bit better. You know, I only saw a limited portion of the city, but it looked better than what I've seen in the last few years. So California and the city center specifically seem like maybe they're getting a little bit more serious about crime and homelessness, but not before this legendary criminal had his way and apparently got away, at least for now. In Mountain View, this is Santa Clara County, south of San Francisco, police are searching for a barber who has been charged with sexually assaulting 2 men, and they believe there are more victims out there.
Sexual assault, intoxication, and kidnapping, with the suspect still on the run. 34-year-old Franklin Enrique Sarqueño Orla's Mountain View apartment sits empty after police say he fled after being arrested for sexual assault, and investigators fear there may be more victims.
We have reason to believe that there are at least 20, if not more. It does seem that these various victims were either unconscious or intoxicated, or a combination of both, based on the video evidence that's been obtained by law enforcement thus far.
Investigators say 2 victims described losing consciousness after sharing drinks with Sarqueño Orla earlier this year. Court documents reveal that one of the victims was unlawfully restrained while Sarqueño Orla sodomized him. The other, a client of Sarqueño Orla's home barber business, was allegedly kidnapped and carried away after being intoxicated by an anesthetic substance. Sarqueño Orla was first arrested and posted a $250,000 bond in August for sexual assault before the second allegation surfaced. He missed his October court date, and investigators are confident he is no longer in the area. Evidence suggests assaults may date back to 2018, and the district attorney's office is asking for other victims to come forward.
We will very much take great priority in their anonymity and protecting their names as much as we can throughout this process. We would encourage them, if they do think they're a potential victim of the defendant, to seek testing for sexually transmitted diseases.
So this guy's name, again, is Franklin Enrique Sarqueño Orla, if I'm reading that correctly. I'm going to speculate that he may have a dubious immigration status, too. That's a total guess. I'm just saying, if he is as California as it seems, he might be an illegal immigrant, too. Maybe. Again, I don't know that for a fact. But when I say he's the most California criminal ever to California, what do I mean? Yeah, he is a gay, possibly illegal immigrant who was kidnapping dudes to rape them. And he has apparently done this multiple times and was arrested for it, but was released from custody and is now on the run. But the good news is he may have self-deported. But as the prosecutor, or whatever that guy's role was, DA, as he said, if you have been raped by this guy, first get yourself checked, and then please contact police. They will protect you, even though they have protected nobody from this guy so far. And you heard it there in the story. Yet, court documents reveal one of the victims was unlawfully restrained while Sarqueño Orla sodomized him. So we're talking about drugging people. We're talking about tying them up. We're talking about putting things, you know where. But
you're acting queer.
Very. Anyway, let's get to the Daniel Penny trial. I posted about this earlier this week as the prosecution rested its case, and the highlight from the prosecution's case, I at least in my estimation, again, we don't get to watch this trial in New York. There are no cameras in the courtroom. We have to rely on reporter descriptions of what happened. And for the prosecution's case, they brought forth this medical examiner, the woman who works for the whatever the county authority or whatever the local government authority is in Manhattan and determine the cause of death for Daniel Penny on behalf of the state. Now, of course, as we all recall, the Daniel Penny case is the case of the former Marine Daniel Penny who restrained Jordan Neely, the drug addict hobo who was famous for his Michael Jackson impersonations on the subway when he entered the subway in May 2023 and started shouting threats at people and saying he doesn't care if he goes to prison, he doesn't care if he dies. Daniel Penny restrains him in a chokehold, and that is the nature of the manslaughter and negligent homicide charges against Daniel Penny. So I posted about this on Wednesday, but just in case people missed, this was one of the highlights of the prosecution. The prosecution brought forth the medical examiner, and the medical examiner is a woman named Cynthia Harris. And Cynthia Harris describes how she determined her cause of death for Jordan Neely based largely on the video. So, yeah, I mean, I examined his body, but then I watched the video, and I actually said it was inconclusive based on looking at his body what killed him. But then I saw the video, and I said that he died due to asphyxiation, the choking from Daniel Penny. She made that determination before she had even looked at the toxicology report, indeed before the toxicology report was even out. Later, the toxicology report was released, and it showed that Jordan Neely was on K2, a synthetic cannabinoid that changes so frequently that she can't even say what its exact properties are. She doesn't know. But she said that she doesn't care what drugs Jordan Neely was taking. In fact, he could have had enough fentanyl to kill an elephant in his body, and she would have said, still, it was the chokehold that killed him, which is an insane, nonsensical, non-medical thing to say. Well, I don't care if he had a fatal drug dose in him. I still would not call that drug dose fatal. Now, complicating the medical situation, Jordan Neely also had sickle cell trait, so that impacted his body's ability to carry oxygen. Certainly also would have been a factor in his death. Now, why do I reiterate stuff I've already said earlier in the week? Well, one, I hope you'll go watch the video if you didn't watch it yet. But two, because it sets us up for a battle of the experts, the dueling experts that we have at this trial now. Because this week the defense made its case, and according to reporting, questioning the cause of Neely's death was a major piece of the defense strategy. And the defense brought forth its own medical expert witness this week. His name is Dr. Satish Chundru, a former Miami area medical examiner who now runs a private practice in Texas. He has conducted autopsies in half a dozen counties in his career. And he says in his professional opinion, Jordan Neely did not, in fact, die from the chokehold. He died from a combination of the factors: the sickle cell trait, schizophrenia, which apparently he had, the physical struggle, and yes, the synthetic marijuana that he was on. Asked by defense lawyer Stephen Razor, in your opinion, did Mr. Penny choke Mr. Neely to death? And Chandra replied, no, the chokehold did not cause death, he said. This, of course, in combination with witness testimony that Jordan Neely was insane and threatening everyone. And from my perspective, there's the question of what caused the death. That certainly is relevant to the defense. But I think it's just as valid a defense to say, even if he applied lethal force, which personally I don't think he did, and according to this medical expert, he didn't. But even if Daniel Penny applied lethal force to Jordan Neely, that would be justified in New York State, under New York State law, because you are lawfully authorized to use lethal force in response to an imminent threat of serious bodily injury or other crimes, assuming you have no reasonable way to retreat, which if you're in a moving train car, as they were, you have no reasonable way to retreat. So I think in terms of the cause of death, there's the medical, physiological question that's being evaluated. I don't believe that Daniel Penny caused Jordan Neely's death, but there's also the pure self-defense angle. Was he justified in using force to neutralize this threat? And I think even New York law would say yes, that he was. Again, we don't have to theorize about a reasonable person. Would a reasonable person have been afraid for his life? Well, you don't have to wonder what a reasonable person might think, you can ask all of these witnesses who saw it and said, yeah, that guy was insane. And that was the first time in my life I thought I was going to die. So that will be the question for the jury to evaluate. Daniel Penny opted not to testify in his own defense. And I think, I'm not a lawyer, so take my analysis with a grain of salt. But in general, I think it's a very risky strategy, of course, for a defendant. Daniel Penny, as we'll see in this police interview in a moment, he does strike me as a very well-spoken, good Samaritan, trying to do the right thing type of guy. So if ever there was, first of all, I think he should testify, maybe should testify in his own defense, because I believe the truth is on his side. I don't believe he committed a crime that day. But secondarily, I think that he's capable of presenting himself quite well. So we'll see if that was a wise decision not to testify or not, and what the jury thinks of him based on other people's descriptions of him, or potentially a video depiction of him, rather than him presenting himself before them. But the jury will now be tasked with it. It's not quite to the jury yet, but it's going to get there soon. Tasked with assessing whether Penny acted with recklessness beyond a reasonable doubt. So remember, the charge here is not like, oh, he intentionally killed Jordan Neely. He said, I hate that guy, I'm going to kill him. The idea is that he acted in a way that was so reckless it had disregard for the life of Jordan Neely, and a reasonable person would never act that way. And because of that recklessness, Jordan Neely died. That's the nature of the charge. So we will see. We're not going to. This case is not going to go to the jury until, well, after Thanksgiving is when they're going to have the opportunity. There's closing statements that are going to be made after Thanksgiving. The prosecutors and defense lawyers are going to meet with the judge on Monday to figure out the jury instructions ahead of that. And that brings us to Daniel Penny's police interview. As part of the trial, we have now seen the initial interaction with police that Daniel Penny had after the incident, or at least a large portion of it. The video that I've seen is about 8 minutes long. I'm not sure if that's the totality of it, but it's a good portion. And you can see when you watch this, Daniel Penny believes that police are interviewing him about that insane drugged out criminal that he had to restrain. He doesn't think they're interviewing him about supposedly killing a person. In fact, it's pretty clear based on the commentary that he doesn't even realize that Jordan Neely had died. And I don't know the technical timeline of when he had died. Like, did this conversation take place before or after he was technically dead? I'm not sure. But over the course of the interview, you can see it becomes more and more apparent to him that these detectives view him as a suspect, not as good Samaritan guy that they're interviewing about that degenerate who was on the train, but as a guy who maybe committed some form of unjustified homicide. And I just have a couple minutes of this interview prepped. Again, you can go watch the full thing, and if you're interested in this case, I would suggest that you do. I think the jury saw this at trial. So again, it'll be up to the jury to decide. Are you listening to a good Samaritan or a bloodthirsty killer?
Daniel?
Yep.
I'm Detective McCarthy. I'm Detective McDean. I actually located This is where you're at right now.
Cool.
How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Okay. Very good. Very good. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
You served in the Marine Corps now?
I did, yes.
I served in the Marine Corps.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Got my little desk before the sun attached.
There you go. Nice, man.
What you doing? What was your MLS in the
I was in 0351.
I was an 0331.
Oh, cool. Michigan. Yeah, weapons platoon. Nice, man.
Yeah. We want to talk to you about what happened today.
Sure.
Thank you for sticking around.
Yeah.
And being cooperative.
Absolutely.
And hoorah, serving in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But anyway, before we speak to you about today, we have to read you your rights.
Sure. Okay? Absolutely. I forget what stop it was at, but some guy came in and he's like, whipped his jacket off and he's like, I'm gonna kill everybody. I can go to prison forever. I don't care. I don't do this. At that point, I looked to the person next to me like, hey, just hang on to this phone for me. I had my headphones in and took it off and just kind of like grabbed him from behind because he came in just to like, because he was acting like a lunatic, like a crazy person.
Do you mind showing me?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so he was standing behind me and I kind of came like this.
Okay. Did you apply pressure, Daniel?
No, I wasn't. I just wanted to keep him from getting to people.
Did you put your hooks in?
Yeah, wrap my legs.
Did you learn the jiu-jitsu from the Marine Corps?
I did, yes.
Because I noticed that you put it around my neck and then you closed from behind.
I would have had it on the back of his head. I didn't press forward.
He was making enough of a scene that you noticed him, and then you probably would have noticed if he put his hands on someone.
but I didn't.
Okay, all right, that's fine. And then once he starts doing that, that's when you try to subdue him.
Yes, I wasn't trying to like injure him.
Right.
I'm just trying to keep him from hurting anybody else. He's threatening people.
Okay, you can really see the cops playing nice to start there. Oh, you were in the Marine Corps? No way, I was in the Marine Corps too. Semper Fi, right, bro? Devil dogs, right, bro? All right, now that we're cool and friendly and we understand each other, I'm going to read you your Miranda rights. But don't worry, we're still Marine bros, you and me. And again, it's pretty clear contextually that Penny had no idea that Neely had actually died at that point, which is part of the reason I think that he doesn't seem to think that he's a suspect of any kind. But of course, as many have responded on Twitter and elsewhere, what does this video demonstrate? Well, as a rule, don't talk to police without a lawyer, and you don't assume that they are your friends. Was that detective even in the Marines? Maybe, maybe not. Is he just buttering up Daniel Penny? Who knows? He did actually have a lot of specific information about it, so I'm not. I doubt it was a lie. But I guess my question is, does he sincerely care about Marine Corps camaraderie, or is he just aiming for an angle to become friendly with Daniel Penny to make him comfortable as an interrogation tactic? And Daniel Penny in that interaction clearly thinks that he's a good guy doing good guy things, primarily because he is a good guy who did good guy things, at least in my opinion. And so what is he thinking? Well, I'll help out the police because I'm the good guy. I have nothing to hide. Why would I act evasive with them? Why would I refuse to cooperate? I'm the good guy. I'll be a good guy with the cops. That, of course, assumes what? It assumes that the truth is what those police are after. Often not the case. I don't think that is the case in this case. I think they're after something else. But of course, just refusing to talk to police and encouraging people not to do that without a lawyer, that doesn't fix the problem. It only mitigates the abuse, which is better, but it's not the ideal. I think we do want, of course, a society where people do willingly speak with police to help solve crimes that benefits everybody, assuming that police, prosecutors, law enforcement have the right motives and have the right things at heart. But trust with police and police earning that trust it's a sign of a healthy society, So that would be the aim. How do you do that? You can't, giving the finger to these cops would have probably been a better step. But does that build a better society overall? Well, one way or another, we got to get people in power who are actually sympathetic and deferential with citizens defending themselves. And not deferring to drug addict career criminals as supposed victims. So easier said than done. How do you get those people in power? How do you do away with the Alvin Braggs and the offices that are pursuing this case? Well, naively, I guess you got to trust in the electoral process, though it doesn't seem like it's doing much in the New York Cities of the world. But somehow, some way, this problem has to get fixed. And if it doesn't, then I suppose the sort of thing they're trying to prevent by prosecuting Daniel Penny will become all too common, unfortunately. You can't just ignore crime like this, Jordan Neely, and allow this guy to be on the streets harassing people. This guy has something like 47 arrests, something like that. Problem, morally speaking, gets cleaned up one way or another. The police can do it. The state can do it. If they don't, the moral reality is citizens are going to have to jump in and police that issue for themselves. And if the state tries to stop them, you put people in an impossible position where my choice is submit to the criminals or have my life destroyed by the state. Those are two untenable choices, and the only way out of that is conflict, unfortunately. That's not me advocating anything. It's just recognizing the reality of the scenario. So as far as the trial, it's going to go to jury soon, as I mentioned. Again, prosecution rested earlier this week. Defense rested Friday. Closing arguments after Thanksgiving. And they're going to sit down with the judge on Monday to tomorrow to figure out the jury instructions. Now, so what does that set us up for? That case could be decided the first week or two in December. So stand by for that. Even though it's New York, I really am hopeful that Daniel Penny is going to be acquitted. If he is convicted on any charges, I think it's going to be a national outrage, and we'll see what sort of response there is. Again, this is New York State charges. It's not like Trump can pardon this guy or something like that. I don't think Kathy Hochul is eager to do that. Who knows?
Definitely worth checking into.
No matter what she says, you're probably, if he is convicted in New York, it's going to be a tough time for him, but we'll see what direction that goes. All right. Let me see if my guest this evening, Matt Palumbo, is here. Let me go to break. I'll come right back if I can bring him in. Stand by. I'm very proud of myself for being exactly on time. Let's get you set up a little bit. Let's get you in the center of the screen and get that mic on your face.
Oh, yes.
There we go.
All right, that's good.
Anyway, thanks for joining, man. My guest tonight is Matt Palumbo, content manager over at BonginoReport.com. Appreciate your time.
No, thanks for having me back. I'm sorry if I just accidentally uncentered myself a little bit.
Well, we had it all set up beautifully, and then you had to go and destroy my my production. But it is as you're familiar with, it's a duct tape production. That's okay. I know you've been following a lot of the Trump cabinet picks and how all these are playing out politically. So I figured we could run through these together since you've got a lot of information that I'm a little bit behind on this week. And I think nothing has been more high profile than, of course, the selection of Pam Bondi, because former AG selection Matt Gaetz is out after being the nominee for all of 8 days, something like that. So to start, what do you know about Pam Bondi? But more specifically, I'm interested to think about, given the speed of the selection of Pam Bondi, of course, former Florida AG, she did that for something like 8 years. Was this a hasty reaction from Trump in response to Matt Gaetz stepping down? Or was the plan for Matt Gaetz to go away and Pam Bondi has been on the bench this whole time in anticipation of that?
I'm leaning towards they knew all along Gaetz was going to get through and they had a backup plan. I'm still trying to figure out the logic behind why. And I'll go into that actually, my sort of theories after talking about Bondi. The thing that I think is mainly in her favor, I mean, she was a Trump loyalist. She defended him during the first impeachment. She was part of the America First Policy Institute. But to sort of reiterate, being a loyalist, I would argue, and this is very rare that I would say this, it is almost more important than your qualifications in the context of a Trump administration, in that, Trump promised the best people during his first term, but one of the things that derailed him was his picks, and that there were a lot of people who were effectively just grifters who wanted to use the administration to bolster their career. And Trump was, he was sort of hiring people who liked Donald Trump, and that was, unfortunately disproportionately weighing in his consideration. And a lot of them backstabbed him. A lot of them who were incompetent and got fired, then turned on a dime and decided, you know what, it's actually the worst administration ever. And they were sort of these turned into Bush era sycophants. But when it comes to her other qualifications, she is a prosecutor for 30 years. So that's more time than Merrick Garland. And I think Blonde would have loved this, she is a woman. So that's another qualification you can check off there.
Well, yeah, I didn't. I wasn't prepared for the Rogue Blonde reference. Jeez.
Is that okay? I don't want to, bring any bad feelings.
Thank you for your contribution to the show this evening. That's Matt Palumbo, BonginoReport.com. Get that mic tight on your face, by the way.
Sorry.
Remember we talked about that?
I meant to say a different color.
I told him to deep throat his mic to make sure that his sound was coming through, but
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
All right, so. Okay, so you're saying loyalty is the number one qualification, though. Of course, she she is a qualified attorney and has attorney general experience at the state level. What do you make of the controversy of the supposed lack of loyalty regarding her 2016 Jeb Bush campaigning, and Jeb Bush saying, "Great pick," I think this week. Is this well, I don't know. Is this a lack of loyalty? Now, a lot of people were not early supporters of Donald Trump in 2016. I was barely removed from being a Democrat in 2016, so I'm not throwing shade here. Other than being on the stage to campaign for Jeb is pretty rough.
It was embarrassing.
She's like, when Jeb Bush said, "Please clap," she was apparently the one woman like, "Yeah, I love Jeb. He's awesome. He's great." What do you make of that as far as loyalty?
Well, as you said, we all changed our minds. I mean, I was more on board with Ted Cruz probably for the first 6 months of the campaign. And then, as someone who thoroughly enjoyed Trump the most, I just thought that maybe Cruz would have been better on policy. But I, very quickly became something of a Trump sycophant and, completely changed my mind genuinely. When it comes to people changing their minds, you have to remember, like, Marco Rubio and Trump kind of had the harshest criticisms of each other at those debates. And actually, Marco did really the best you can do against Trump while getting crushed. And they're kind of buddy now. He obviously got a cabinet position. So it depends if they're genuine or not. And obviously, she, I think, proved it during the administration.
Well, here's my next question on Pam Bondi, beyond the Jeb support, which, all right, fine. I'll look past it. But so in coverage of this, there's a lot of the Pam skeptics, and I don't mean the right-wing versions, the Trump loyalty people. I mean the progressive fearmongers. They fearmonger about Pam Bondi because of a clip that she had on Fox News. Well, for many reasons, but in part because of a clip she had on Fox News in August of last year. So something like 15 months ago, saying that we should go after the prosecutors. We should prosecute the prosecutors.
The Department of Justice, the prosecutors will be prosecuted, the bad ones. The investigators will be investigated, because the deep state, last term for President Trump, they were hiding in the shadows, but now they have a spotlight on them, and they can all be investigated.
What do you make of that? Because if she actually does that, that would counter a lot of what Trump is saying about, our success will be our revenge. We're not going to have the DOJ targeting people for political reasons like was done to me. You think Pam Bondi is going to be fair and by the book as her predecessor Merrick Garland was? Or do you think Merrick Garland...
I hope she's like Merrick Garland, I guess is what I really mean to say here.
Will she be like they characterized Merrick Garland?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I don't want the DOJ going against political opponents randomly, but if you are launching witch hunts to try to derail someone from becoming president, when that person becomes president, what do you expect them to do? I mean, the conservative argument against using the government against our enemies has always amounted to, well, then they'll use it against us. But the current landscape is them using it against us and us doing nothing. So if they then in reverse use it against us again, we're just exactly where we started. So yeah, I'm all in favor of this, and there has to be deterrence if nothing else.
I guess you are filling that seat well, because here I'm going to stand. It's my role to stand up for my principles and say, no, we will not use the DOJ as the sword that it has been wielded against us. All right. So, well, okay. That's two questions, though. Your view of how that power ought to be wielded, but do you think Pam Bondi will actually do that? Or is that just some old clip that's resurfaced?
I can only say I hope so. I mean, when Trump says things like "my revenge will be success," it's because he knows how the soundbite will go on every network except Fox if he says, "Yeah, we're going to be raining hell on these people," or so at least I think. But no, I don't know why she wouldn't follow through with it. It's if they don't, they are going to do this to every Republican who ever runs ever.
Well, that brings me to my curiosity about what the hell is up with Matt Gaetz.
Yes,
and I just can't figure this out. Like, face value, okay, Matt Gaetz is nominated. Matt Gaetz has this ongoing investigation about alleged sex trafficking and doing drugs and all this stuff that the DOJ looked at but couldn't criminally charge. Congress is still investigating. But per his involvement with getting Kevin McCarthy kicked out or removed as House Speaker, he also has a lot of enemies within the Republican Party, too. And so this was always going to be a difficult nomination because this is a man that a lot of people have a lot of hate for.
Well,
but
yeah, I mean, there were some reports, and they're probably not credible because you can't prove it, that up to 30 Republicans were going to vote against him. I
30?
sincerely doubt that.
I saw
but-
4. The crucial number was 4.
Correct.
Yeah.
I saw as many as 5, with Mark Wayne Mullen being listed as the 5th in some sources.
Yeah.
Mark Wayne is the guy who... He used to be in the House before the Senate, and he was the one who said that Gaetz would talk about his sexual escapades and drug use. So I think if he was going to vote against him, it's just because he thought he was like a D-bag, but that wasn't confirmed. The fourth was, well, it was Collins and Murkowski, who we knew, Mitch McConnell, which was a likely. Then there's a new senator-elect from Utah who came out against him.
Yeah, the Romney replacement guy.
Yeah, and the Mormons are the most Republican group, and they most conservative, and then they elect these weak people. Like their governor looks like the pig who says that's all, folks, in Looney Tunes. Like it's just weird people they elect, and it's just bewildering. But the thing that confuses me is he stepped down, so that made it seem like it was a guarantee he was going to go forward. Some people thought, well, it's so the ethics report doesn't get released. But the question of, can you release the ethics report with him stepping down? I think the answer is yes, because after he stepped down, the House Ethics Committee had a vote on this, and it was deadlocked to not release it. And they're going to try again to release it, but I don't see how they could. But the point is, in theory, they still could have released it. So I don't know if he couldn't have resigned for that reason. And then there was also the question of, well, he resigned his current term. Could he still take office because he won another term? And I don't think there's precedent for it. But so there was mixed reactions there. But he did say after that, like, no, I'm not going to return in that capacity.
Yeah.
And then started doing Cameo. So there's a few.
You teed me up there, because no matter what his plan was. Okay, let's say that this was some chess move to help out a friend. You know, Matt Gaetz is under this investigation. He doesn't want the appearance of resigning to avoid the investigation becoming public. So you give him this nomination that is doomed to fail, and he resigns to pursue the nomination. But actually, once the nomination fails, he has this easy out of Congress to avoid the embarrassing report results. It would be the theory here. And I could entertain that if his goal was just to go away with some level of grace. Does he have bills to pay? He's on Cameo, the site where you pay for shout outs from people. Matt Gaetz over the weekend, some lady says, please say hi to my relatives for $20.
Hey, Lisa Kovac, it's your favorite former Congressman Matt Gaetz. I just wanted to thank you for being a longtime patriot, for supporting President Trump through thick and thin. And I know you were bummed out when the news broke that I wouldn't be the next attorney general. We did get a great replacement in Pam Bondi. She's going to do an awesome job.
You get the idea. I don't need to hear the whole thing. Will he show feet is the big question.
Well, I think it's $500, so I guess if you're into that, he has to.
That's what this lady paid for?
$500. Yeah,
I just guessed 20 because that's what I've seen. $500. Okay, so maybe this was the plan.
I feel like I should look it up, but I don't want to waste time.
Okay, well, way back when, there have been many contributions to this show through Cameo. People getting unknowing shout outs to me and to us from people like Rachel Dolezal and Rose McGowan. Not that I would encourage trolling or whatever. If it's, I don't know what Matt Gaetz would say for the show, but $500.
Yeah,
I can't believe people are paying that. I'm gonna have to verify.
I don't know if they are, but I mean, he's probably going to make more money than he does in Congress. There, but
maybe
actually, to wrap up my last point, the leading theory is that I can't remember if I'm repeating myself. Is that it was kind of a shit test just to see which Republicans would come out against him as a nominee, and some people think, and Gaetz sort of hinted at this, that he could be on the special counsel to investigate Jack Smith and some of those prosecutors that I guess Pam Bondi was talking about. Actually,
was Matt Gaetz ever a U.S. attorney? Do you know?
I don't
Federal
believe
prosecutor?
So. I mean, he was a lawyer, but I don't believe.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because that was the argument against the unconstitutionality of Jack Smith's office that Clarence Thomas wrote, and that I think it was the judge in the Mar-a-Lago case ended up bringing up. And if Matt Gaetz, let's say that Pam Bondi becomes the AG and Matt Gaetz is named special counsel for whatever this investigation is. Theoretically, he could face the same constitutional challenge if his office is deemed unconstitutionally created, if it was done the same way that, say, Jack Smith was done, which would be an irony. But I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that to happen, and Democrats to say, well, the way we handled Jack Smith was fine, but not this guy.
Well, one of the things the Biden administration did that's genius in the worst way possible is they knew the legal system lags by quite a long time if you break the law. So things like the COVID vax mandate were never going to be constitutional or allowed, but they knew that if they required it, it's going to take so long to get a case appealed to the Supreme Court or a higher court to reverse it that, they have months to years to actually implement it. And by the time it gets struck down, everyone's been affected by it. So, I'm not saying the Trump administration should do this, but if they did pursue that kind of strategy, it would be no different than with the people who persecute.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most frustrating things about the Biden administration was doing unconstitutional nonsense like that, knowing it's unconstitutional and saying, well, until they stop us, what's the problem? Yeah, we've lost our big bird spirit as a country. Nobody was shopping for feathers and adhesive to deal with that problem, But all right, so there were more this week. We got Scott Bessent. Am I saying that right? Treasury Secretary guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this guy. I mean, we're always on the right talking about George Soros. I would never use this opportunity to plug a book about him called "The Man Behind the Curtain," available wherever books are sold. Oh, you're doing it for me. Even better.
Wait, who's that by? Who's that by? Who's the author?
Pat Palumbo.
Oh, where do I purchase it?
Amazon.com
or
wherever books are sold.
Okay.
Target, Barnes & Noble.
Well, you might want to know more about George Soros through the book. If you have some questions about, I guess, this Treasury Secretary pick, who's like a former Democrat Soros shill. Is that fair?
So he worked for Soros's fund from 1991 to 2005, and then again from 2011 to 2015. One of the most infamous trades that Soros has ever placed was when he broke the British pound and netted himself $1 billion in one day. Bessent headed the London office that conducted that trade. So the man also behind one of Soros's best and most controversial trades is now going to be in the Trump administration. Now, after he left Soros in 2015, he started his own hedge fund called Key Square Group. They raised about $4 billion up front. That's actually gone down like incredibly because the performance sucked. But half of that funding, $2 billion, was from George Soros. So he was being funded literally by Soros as recently as 9 years ago. Fortunately for us and unfortunately for Soros, the fund kind of tanked. It was only up, or tanked isn't the right word. It underperformed. It was up only 22% as of 2 years ago. The market had more than doubled over the same time period. So one of his things, though, his defense is, yes, I worked for Soros, but I didn't participate in the quote unquote philanthropic part, which, is mostly political.
So this was all like wealth management, financial management? What was it?
So it was doing wealth management. He was part of the Soros hedge fund until he founded his own. But when he says he wasn't doing the philanthropic stuff, he was a member of a group called the International Crisis Group's President's Council from 2014 to 2020. Alex Soros was also on that council, and the Soros family has donated $75 million to that group. So clearly that's not true. Another thing he said that he thought was in his favor was that in 2014, Soros wanted to start not doing investments in Israel or pulling investments out of Israel. And he said that he made such a stink of it about it and threatened to resign that they actually reversed their decision. And his narrative is, well, that just means I'm one of the good guys, but that shows he had such sway that he could change George Soros's mind on an investment decision. So I interpreted that differently. And then you go through the guy's political donations. He did fundraisers for Al Gore, for Hillary Clinton, for Barack Obama. With Hillary Clinton, he donated millions to her campaign. And then months later, donated to Trump's inauguration. And then also in 2014, he donated to Trump.
So what does Trump see in this guy then? I assume he believes this guy's had some sort of political change, and maybe he's spoken to that. I haven't followed this guy closely, but what is it that Trump sees in him?
So the sort of rebuttal I saw was from Carol Roth, who's a right-wing commentator. She actually wrote a really good book, criticizing the World Economic Forum. And her take was more like, this guy is actually one of the best investors out there. I don't think that's shown by his new hedge fund, but I guess when he worked for Soros or before that he was. Soros, unfortunately, has the second best investment record in terms of percent increase of any hedge fund manager ever, behind Ray Dalio of Bridgewater Associates. So her take was more, well, when you have two of the most brilliant financial minds out there, they're gonna kind of, meet each other or work together at some point. So that was her take, but I just disagree. I think his donation records speak for themselves, and I don't see any evidence he's changed ideologically. I mean, he has backed Trump's policies on, the deficit and just general economics, but, I don't know if he's just kind of either faking it or he's just marginally fiscally conservative, but not on board with anything else that we believe in.
You sent me a clip of Trump introducing him. Is that helpful to play?
Actually, probably not. I think I kind of covered everything. Actually,
all right. Well, let's move on to Russ. How do I say this guy's name?
Vought.
Vought.
Vought. Yeah.
Vought. Okay. Well,
dude, I had the most embarrassing moment ever. So, I texted after I got announced. I texted the woman that I thought was his wife, like, "Congratulations to you two," and she writes back, "Oh, we divorced years ago, but I'll let you know. I'll let him know," which was very embarrassing. Yeah, it was not good.
Oh my God, bro!
We've all been there, I think.
He was the key architect.
Not that
of Project
specifically.
20.
Let me clarify. I've never done that, but I have done embarrassing things. I've put my foot in my mouth in similar ways. Although I don't think I've ever
Anyway.
said. Yeah. Anyway, funny.
My second error of the show. Anyway, so he was one of the key,
3 strikes
one of
and
the
you're
lead
out.
architect.
Speaking of errors, I'll stop making stupid, lame jokes. You tell me about Russ Vought for White House budget director.
On it.
Yeah.
So he was one of the key architects of Project 2025, which Matt Walsh brilliantly put in a tweet trolling action that, it actually is the agenda the whole time. And it sort of was. I mean, there was 200 people, or actually 140 people who worked for the Trump administration in some capacity that were part of Project 2025.
Well, it did suck to be, and I haven't read this thoroughly, but what I've heard about it, frankly, mostly things I agree with, of course. There's not anything that came out of there I thought that's outrageous insanity. Seems like mostly sensible things. And politically, at least from the Trump campaign perspective, it was running scared from this thing. Nothing to do with it. No idea what that is. Whether that was dishonest or not, I wish there would have been a more aggressive tone taken. What specifically do you think is so insane in Project 2025? What would be so bad for the country that's in there?
So I made a list of some of the things that the liberals were fear-mongering on TikTok, and they're all basically advertisements for Project 2025. The fear-mongering is over things like abolishing the Department of Education, not counting non-citizens in population in the census, which affects apportionment. Actually, Democrats have, I think, 20 more seats than they should because we count non-citizens in population. Removing wokeness from public schools, mass deportation. And the next one I actually saw listed as a negative. It was abolishing warrantless surveillance. And then things like
why can't we agree on that?
Trans surgeries on minors with their Medicare dollars.
Yeah.
So things that are basically common sense, I would say, but they were spun as a negative. And when the Trump administration ran from it, I think it's probably just the 1% that they think will not play well with the rest of with the general public. Maybe some of the abortion stuff they thought was too harsh and just isn't going to play well given what happened in 2022. But it's pretty mainstream, for us.
Well, and I noticed in the AP coverage, and this is knowledge I should have, so I have to plead ignorance, but they say Vought, so he's going to manage budget issues for the White House. They say this would be an encore for him. So he did this previously. He was already in this role, so it's just bring back the guy who did it last time around. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think there's optimism that Trump will actually cut the national debt, which has not happened, I don't think, since Eisenhower. The betting markets have it at 60% as I'm speaking, which, maybe it's overly optimistic, but if he actually pulled that off, that would be incredible.
We will cut our debt from a bajillion, million, trillion, gajillion dollars down to maybe just billion, jillion, quadrillion.
Yes.
Yeah. I look forward to that. It's going to be a great day in America. All right. Well, before we get to the top of the hour, let's talk Pete Hegseth.
Yes.
And so now that Matt Gaetz is out, the sexual scandal has moved on to Defense Department or Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth. So this week, the police report came out. Again, it's alleged that he had some sort of... It's not even alleged. He acknowledges the sexual encounter at this hotel at this California Republican Women's Conference back in 2017. And there was a police report, but he just says the encounter was consensual. The accuser says it was some kind of sexual assault. And this week we saw the police report itself. And I haven't had time to look at this. So what did we learn from the police report?
Well, I'll just give some background before the police report, which I think kind of debunks the entire thing. But the narrative from the woman was they're at a conservative conference. She goes up to him and starts complaining about how sexist he is. And then that somehow turns into them getting drunk and going back to her hotel room. And then a sexual assault happens, which, what was the tone of calling him sexist? Was it angrily berating him or flirting with him in a, oh, you're so sexist, I can't believe you say that stuff kind of way? It probably sounds more gay than women, but which was it? And one of the things that's crazy about this story is her husband and her kids were at the event. And according to the police report, the husband goes down to the bar they were at 1:30. She's not there. She texts him at 2 a.m. She never, about how she's never out that late. She doesn't respond. 2 hours later, she ends up returning back to the husband's hotel room. He says, quoted by the police report, that she didn't appear drunk or stumbling or anything at all. And the excuse she gave him, I think I have it written down, was that she said she must have fallen asleep. So that was the first narrative she gave him.
She went for a nap in Pete Hegseth's hotel room, and he got touchy during her nap time.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, so they interviewed, obviously, the husband and Pete Hegseth separately.
Mm-hmm.
Hegseth said to the cops, she told me she was going to tell her husband she fell asleep, and that's what happened. So it seems like she just cheated on her husband and didn't want it to seem that way. And also, the eyewitnesses said Hegseth was drunk, not her. So if anything, it was the opposite. I mean, I'm not going to go that far, but you had to argue it.
And obviously, it seems like the allegations of a sexual assault are pretty sketchy, especially insofar as the police investigated this and didn't see fit to bring charges. But in fairness, what we have here is a lot of marital infidelity, and Pete Hegseth is apparently speaking openly about that. I know you sent me that Megyn Kelly clip. It's correct to say that he has had 3 wives or 3 instances of infidelity. I have that clip ready if you'd like to play it, but you tell me.
I think we probably covered it. I guess it was useless for me to provide them, but yeah, I mean, that's the downside, is obviously it's not a great thing, but the thing about politics is we're just not getting saints ever. It's going to be the kind of people who would go into that position are not like most people, for better or for worse.
Yeah. And I think that reasonable people can evaluate that and say, okay, I think he may have some problems morally as a man. Mm-hmm. That is a separate question from how do I think he'll run the Defense Department. And it'll be interesting to see how he responds to this during hearings, assuming it goes that way. But you tell me, but based on what I'm reading, it seems like Republican support for him, even despite these allegations, is pretty strong. I say that relative to someone like Tulsi Gabbard, of course, Matt Gaetz, who couldn't get the support, but Tulsi Gabbard, who we'll speak about in a minute. Tulsi Gabbard's got several senators out, at least asking questions about what's going on with her. Looking at how senators are reacting to Pete Hegseth and even the release of the police report, I only see Republican Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota saying, well, that's a pretty big problem because we have so much sexual assault in the military already, so I have major questions about this. Other than that, I don't see a lot of Republican senators lining up for firm opposition to Hegseth. What do you think his prospects for confirmation are?
Well, I'm optimistic because, as you mentioned, that's the only one. Although Collins and Murkowski did say last week that they're not going to vote to confirm anyone who hasn't been vetted by the FBI, which is the first time they've ever introduced the standard to vote for someone, which is a bit odd. I mean, I think one of them voted for, or both voted for Ketanji Brown Jackson. So it's just weird how they're making these decisions. And the unfortunate thing about those two is they're the best we're going to get I mean, at least with Collins, that really is the best we're ever going to get from Maine. From Alaska, we could probably get someone better, but it is depressing that they're members of our party.
Well, I tell you what, man, I got to take a super chat break that is strictly scheduled because my super chat guy is here, and I want to be respectful of his time. But if you'd like to come back in, say, 10 minutes, we can go through the rest of these nominees, and then we'll call it a night.
Who are you thinking? I exhausted all my notes.
Well, I got notes prepped too, so I wanted to go through. I wanted to talk Tulsi. I want to talk the Surgeon General pick, if you have looked at that at all. And then your guy, the Transportation Secretary.
Oh, you'll play that clip?
Yeah, I'll play it.
All right, that'll be fun. So I'll be back in like, what, 10, 15?
Yeah, why don't I'll just text you when I'm ready to go. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right.
All right, man.
All right, stand by, everybody. I'll get our Mr. Hunky Buck in here for Super Chats.
Oh, shit.
Hello, sir.
Mr. Christiansen, how you doing?
Knock, knock.
I am well. Thank you.
Knuckles.
And now it's time for Super Chats with Knuckle Hunky Buck.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
Well, are you ready to go for yet another round?
Sure am. How about you?
I am, well, I need a refresh, so why don't you start? We'll get into it.
All right, I'll go ahead and take care of Rumble. Get a sounder ready to shoot at LBot PN.
That's right. Of course. It's LBot. Thank you. Appreciate your support for the show, Mr. LBot, as always.
I am not going to be niggardly.
All right, looks like that takes care of Rumble for tonight.
What? I've got Yakko.
Oh, you go ahead and read Yakko.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. We agreed we were going to trade off. I can't even remember my own guidance, but thank you for your patience. Yakko says, I'm relieved that Trump won the election, but some of his cabinet picks are troubling. His new AG pick, Pam Bondi, is not pro-2A, and I haven't heard that, so I'll have to look at that. She supports red flag laws and banning 18 to 20-year-olds from buying long guns. Yeah, I'll definitely have to investigate that. I know Florida has had some issues with red flag stuff after the Parkland incident back in 2018, so I don't know what she's said about that, and I'll be interested to see. So thank you for the advisory. All right, what do we got? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with anybody like taking any putting any age restriction on a constitutional right. That's I don't know.
In full autos for infants. Is that
well, it seems like basically parental guidance should be a good,
yeah,
or at least leave it up to states.
And to obviously to take the point seriously, you're talking about when she's again, I'm taking that chat as granted that she supported restricting the rights of 18-year-olds. Yeah, are you an adult or are you not? It's not the it's not the childhood thing. But anyway, all right, what do we got?
Even a 15-year-old still has constitutional rights. I mean, I don't know. That seems like it should be more of a parental guidance, whether, like a 15-year-old going and hunting with their dad or parents or whatever.
All right, so it is full auto for infants.
Well, leave it up to the states at least.
Hey, that's okay. Full auto for infants is more the country I want to live in than the status quo. So I'm not going to challenge you on that.
All right, and we got Holden Mulray over on YouTube. Sup, Truth Seeker. I'd love to see the movie review come back in some capacity, perhaps with the recommenders of some of your favorite films as your co-reviewers. I never got the turn to recommend.
Well,
sad emoji.
I'm sorry you never got the chance. I wouldn't say never. I would just say that given the current circumstance, I wouldn't expect movie reviews to come back anytime soon. which is fine. I have enough reasons for people to hate me, between the recent shakeup in the show and all the ongoing Russia suspicion. I don't need more reasons for people to hate me. That's my stance.
I would agree that that's a terrible idea on Holden Mulray's part, but bringing the reviews back in general. But the second part actually kind of wins me back with the recommenders. So all of a sudden, you have to answer to the person who recommended the Road Warrior.
There's your bit. You have to make sure that your Road Warrior opinion is forcefully presented. All right. Congratulations.
Or like, yeah. Basically, anybody who has like a movie that they recommend, if you have to answer to them why you hate this brilliant work of art, that's not a bad idea.
I'm glad your comedy bit was fulfilling. All right. Next up, I got Long Dong John. So, Matavir Christiansen, when will you be called up to testify in Canadian Parliament? I don't think I will. Now, I'm going to get to that later in the show. Lauren Southern did push back on them and did answer questions, which was great to see. Obviously, I'm not Canadian. They have no jurisdictional authority to ask me to talk to them, at least by any means of force. I guess they could voluntarily, and I would laugh in their, I would say I would laugh in their flannel-wearing maple syrup faces, but I, of course, love flannel, so I wouldn't mock them for that reason. But maybe I'd make fun of them about hockey or, I don't know, something like that if I got an email from them. But, all right, next up we got what? Irenic tone?
I believe that's pronounced irenic.
Irenic? I don't even know what that word is. What is it?
It's like peaceful, like promoting peace.
Aiming... Yeah, you're right.
Irenic.
And the pronunciation is correct, too. You're very learned.
Well, to be fair, I saw the super chat come in while you were doing the show.
So thank you.
I did a little research.
Thank you for being prepped.
All right. Watched this show for years, but I watched sparingly for the past year. When I listened to the show after the drama, I gasped when I heard you submitted your life to Christ. Praise God. Blessing on your family and the show.
We love you. You're very special.
Thank you for the well-wishing and, of course, for the vocabulary lesson, too. And God bless you, too. I appreciate it.
All right.
BC says, Matt, were you shitting yourself when the Bears made that onside kick? Now, you and I haven't talked. Hey, listen, it's my show now. I can talk all the gay football I want. Are you a football guy?
I don't follow football. I don't know what players play for most teams. But if I'm at a bar and there's a couple of guys hucking an egg-shaped ball around, I'm gonna watch it.
Okay, so you're just a little bit gay.
That's a big game, man.
I'm football curious.
I'm glad to hear it. Let's talk off air. Okay. Anyway, so I don't know if you caught the game today, but yes, there was one of those trademarked Viking chokes that looked like it was in progress. They were up by 11 against the Bears at Soldier Field with something like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes to go, and the Bears came back and tied it, and the Vikings were able to win in overtime. But yeah, when that onside kick went the wrong way, I was prepared for another Soldier Field disaster.
How many times have you ever watched football and seen a successful onside kick? It's so incredible.
Well, they've changed the rules recently too to make it even tougher. So I don't know.
Okay.
In my watching experience, I'm sure the success rate sub 10. If I had to guess what the success rate, and I'm sure it's published out there somewhere, I would guess historically is probably like 5%, and that might be high.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. That was definitely like. But that's not a real Vikings choke. A real Vikings choke is they go undefeated all season, make it one game away from the Super Bowl.
Well, they're on their way. They're 9-2 now. So just we'll talk about it in a couple months, or maybe as soon as like 6 weeks.
Yeah, maybe a couple more weeks.
Anyways, you're up.
Oil King. Today marks the day Jack Ruby KO Oswald, mobsters or something more. Second pick of AG is fishy. No divorce lawyer moms. Yag, 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 I tooted. Sweat out the sickness. Buck, huck, nuck, truck, ruck, blood, war.
What the f*** is this?
Classic Oil King. I'm sure you've heard his submissions in your time.
I've noticed he tends to add maybe a little extra at the end.
Now, see, this is your challenge. As you develop into this role and figure out your little niche. Once you are a fluent Oil King translator, then I will know that you have really figured it out.
Well, I can tell you based on Buck Huck, I think that's a little bit of a greeting for me. So hello, Oil King. Nice to meet you.
I hope Saudi Arabia is treating you well, or wherever you are. I forget. Chicken Fried Monkey. This year, I'm thankful for you, Matt, along with the honest, funny, and hopeful show you've salvaged from the black pill that was wearing thin. Well, thank you. You handled the situation like the wonderful man I've watched you evolve into. Happy Thanksgiving. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that
We
sincerely.
love you. You're very special.
And all the best to you and your family.
Yeah, I almost forgot Thanksgiving. That's this coming Thursday.
Almost forgot Thanksgiving. You tell me you don't have plans?
No, I do. I'm gonna spend Thanksgiving with my family. Just it really snuck up on me.
Are you hosting on that pile of laundry behind you? You guys gonna have Thanksgiving?
Don't worry.
Thanksgiving
worry about
dinner
that.
on that monstrosity. There's
Don't
plenty
worry
of room.
about that. I'm going somewhere.
Okay.
I'm going somewhere for Thanksgiving. Don't worry about the
Or are you packing up to take that home to your mom to do your laundry for you?
Don't worry about
Okay,
the
all right.
Oh, don't worry about that. Anyways, we got Imperious. Why didn't you mention that your wife was Jewish? Were you worried about losing your right-wing audience after Tenet crashed and burned? Seems a bit disingenuous.
Well, again, this premise keeps coming up as though people have this certain knowledge about who my wife is or what her traits are or anything like that. I don't understand. First of all, my wife is a private person. My wife is not public. My wife is not interested in being...
Matt, you owe it to the audience to dox your wife.
Oh, thank you.
Tell her nationality, her date of birth, what's your home address, and her social security.
Here's where you find
give
her,
us all the info.
Yeah, here's where you find her, where she sleeps at night, so you can examine and
Was Imperious the same one who sent 5 or 6 super chats the same week or the week after Blonde quit?
I don't understand the accusation of disingenuous. Do you want me to tell you the exact traits of my sons? Do you want me to tell you the features of my other? What's disingenuous? And how is this supposed to fit into the show? Like, hey, just so you guys know, here are certain traits about my wife. Again, my wife is a private person, and I've addressed this before, but I'll say it one more time. I think we all know where these claims are coming from. And I will say personally that it is incredibly disappointing on behalf of my family to see accusations made, claims made about someone who was very good friends with the source of these claims for a very long time. I think this is being put out there for personally malicious reasons, to try to sabotage, to try to make someone feel better about choices that they've made. My wife has nothing to do with any of my business decisions, any of my show, anything I do publicly. And so the whole show, the whole claim here is put out there by somebody who's trying to forward a narrative for damaging reasons.
Yeah, but at least you got $10 out of it, right? Thank you, Imperious. Thanks for that $10. Keep sending them in, and say hi to Blonde for me.
Yeah, again, and it's well, I've said everything I have to say about this. I think I think we all know why this is being pushed.
Got Daniel Jagger. Is it Jagger?
Jagger, yeah, like a shot of Jagger.
Jagger would be just a single G if it's German.
But he told me.
Oh, he told you. Okay.
At least
Daniel
I'm 99% sure. Yeah.
Okay, I was basing it off of Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones.
Hold on. That one took me a second, but thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I've got Daniel Jagger apparently. Revolver has a good piece on Soros with all the nuances. Not a lot of new right capital markets guys, unfortunately. He spoke with Bannon pretty recently.
Soros. Yeah, I remember the Revolver stuff, and I guess I haven't. Anyway, if you're interested in high quality Soros investigation, my guest tonight, Matt Palumbo, in his book. What was the title of the book? I already forgot. I'm such a bad promoter. The Man Behind the Curtain: Inside the Secret Network of George Soros. That's where you find all the interesting Soros information. But all right, well, that's probably a good time to take a break. We're almost a quarter after the hour. Tell you what, Hunky Buck, I got to let you go.
Sounds good.
But I appreciate you coming by as always, and thank you for your contribution to the show.
Appreciate you having me. Have a great rest of the show.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
See you then. All right, let me go to break and see if I can get Matt back in here to finish up our discussion of Trump's cabinet picks. Stand by. You're very good. I didn't even have to text you. You were on it. But I think your mic is off.
No, are you sure?
Well, I couldn't hear you, but now I can.
All right, good.
All right, let's get back into these picks, and I want to talk about the Tulsi pick. Is that now that scrutiny is removed from Matt Gaetz by virtue of his withdrawal, and then there's the Pete Hegseth stuff we already went through. That brings us to Tulsi Gabbard, the selection for Director of National Intelligence, of course. And it seems to me the criticism, the scrutiny centers around the idea that she is a Russian asset. And as I mentioned last week, I'm a member of the Russian Asset Party. I've never seen her there. We don't hang out, so I have my skepticism about this claim. But Tammy Duckworth does not. We heard Ramen had Debbie Wasserman Schultz talk about how Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset last week, but now Tammy Duckworth, Democratic senator of Illinois, is saying much the same. She said on CNN that Tulsi Gabbard is compromised by Russia. She said Tulsi Gabbard may not be able to pass a background check, so how could she ever get a security clearance? And I thought, well, that's interesting. Is that an indictment on Tulsi Gabbard, or is that an indictment on the intel community, considering that all the buffoons from the last administration easily had security clearances to serve in their positions? Tulsi Gabbard apparently might have difficulty. So who's at fault for that? But what are your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard, and what do you think her prospects for success are?
Well, it is an indictment of the intel community, and
deep throat that mic.
Sorry, I have to deep throat it again. Yeah. The thing is, like, I can't remember if I said this about Gaetz, but one of the brilliant things Trump is doing is he is taking people who have been persecuted by certain government agencies and then putting them in charge of those agencies. So, but they put Tulsi on a no-fly list, among other things. I mean, they probably spied on her. I have no proof, but I'm sure they did. Anyone accused of Russian collusion, that's what happened to them during the Trump administration. But the positive is, it's beating a dead horse. I mean, we saw in the 2024 election that, all the claims of racism for about a decade just became worthless. I mean, most Hispanics, because the men went Republican, they heard that Trump is racist for the first 4 years of his presidency. They heard it continued under Biden, and then they think to themselves, well, my life is worse now under the supposedly anti-racist guy. I just think with the Russia stuff, it's so tuned. It's just been so overdone. And unless you're one of the, I think it's 100,000 people that watch MSNBC in primetime in the key demo, no one cares about this stuff whatsoever. And it will be amusing that all these Democrats are going to be voting against someone who was a Democrat until last Wednesday and mostly did not have any of these concerns until Trump wanted to pick her. I mean, there are exceptions, because I know she met with Assad, and that was a point of contention. I don't know if you saw the Barry Weiss clip that was going viral.
No, what was that about?
So she's on Rogan, and Rogan's talking about Tulsi as a friend, and she's visibly disgusted. So he's like, well, what's wrong with Tulsi? And she says, well, he's an Assad toady. And toady, like the root of it is like toes the line. So Rogan goes, "Oh, toady, what does that mean?" She didn't know what the word meant. She had to have
Well,
them
there's
look
the
it up
tell.
to make sure.
I got to
she
see that.
correctly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that's how clueless these people are. And by the way, we want people who will talk to these dictators because the alternative is violence. So I mean,
That's a
Trump
fair
talked
point.
to Kim Jong-un, that was good. Talks to Putin, that's good. I don't see what the negative is.
When they talk about her being a Russian asset, I haven't looked at, frankly, to your point, whenever I hear the phrase Russian asset or the allegation, I tune out because I know that that's probably silly nonsense. But when they say this, it seems to me like with Tulsi, they're just talking about her perspective on, say, the Russia-Ukraine war. I haven't seen any kind of allegation that she actually has some sort of direct connection to Russia. When they say Russian asset, that would imply that that Russia has control of her, obviously, that Russia is giving her some kind of direction. Is there evidence to that effect? I've never seen anything like that.
No, it's like with Trump. It's just the slander is the argument. But to your point, if they had to justify it, it would just be her skepticism of the spending on Ukraine. And the question you have to ask these people is, like, what is the dollar amount that we can send Ukraine by which, once we spend more than that, we're allowed to complain? Because when we spent $10 billion, I was thinking, all right, I mean, that's probably all we should spend. And I think we're at $200 billion, and they're supposed to be loans, but they're now forgiving them, which we knew was going to happen the whole time.
Well, yeah,
but
that's the best part about the government loans. See COVID. They forgive them, and there are no consequences whatsoever. Yep. On Tulsi's prospects, I mentioned that it looks like Hegseth has pretty solid support, at least in the early stages here. For Tulsi, maybe a little more dicey. Lankford saying he has questions. The crew you were mentioning earlier, Collins, you got Mike Rounds in South Dakota, Cornyn. I haven't seen Murkowski chime in here, but it definitely seems like Tulsi has a little bit of a tougher road, assuming Democrats hate few people more than they hate people who defect from their party. So even if she wasn't a Russian asset, they hate that. Republicans are going to have questions about, I suppose, some of her skepticism of hawkish positions. And this seems like the numbers are going to be pretty tight, assuming unified Democrat opposition. Maybe Tulsi can pick off some Democrat senators to support her. I don't know, but what are your thoughts on the prospect for confirmation?
It's definitely going to be tougher. Like I'm working under the assumption that every Democrat is going to vote against her, but we don't necessarily know that. I mean, again, she was a Democrat, so that could help sway her, but then it could also work in the opposite, in that Republicans view her as a Democrat, Democrats view her as a Trump loyalist, so it could go either way. I mean, I could look up the betting odds right now to get you an exact, precise chance of who that would be.
That's all right.
I figured it might take too much time.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, let's talk a little bit about, there are two picks I want to talk about. I haven't looked at this Surgeon General pick until today, and I don't know much about her. Maybe you do, but I got to say I'm not enthused by what I see from some of her past commentary, including promoting the nonsensical CDC vaccine rules. She pushed the vaccine as obviously beneficial, advocated multiple doses of the vaccine. She advocated masks for everyone, but masks for children specifically. This is Dr. Jeanette Nashawat. Here's a little bit of some of her past commentary.
But yesterday, the CDC put out guidelines. If you are fully vaccinated, then it is safe to go outside, to go hiking, biking, to enjoy outdoor dining, to be around other people who are unvaccinated without a mask. Now, that is if you are fully vaccinated. If you are not vaccinated, you still have to take precautions around other people. Now, both vaccinated and unvaccinated groups have to still wear a mask in large public areas where it's crowded, like concerts and stadiums. And then when it comes to children, we've got a lot of data that tells us children under the age of 10 are low risk for carriers or for transmission of COVID. So we really need to keep that in mind, especially with the summer coming up with summer camps. CDC is still recommending that the young ones wear their masks when they are around others, stay in cohorts with camping. And the only times that they can remove their mask is if they're sleeping, if they're swimming, if they're eating, and they still have to maintain that social distancing as well.
Okay, that might as well be Dr. Fauci or Rochelle Walensky or any of the others. Do you know much about this woman?
I couldn't really find any evidence she ever reversed any of her positions like those you just played there, which, I can forgive people for getting things wrong at first. I mean, there was this weird part of history that I think has gone forgotten. This was like end of December, early January, where the only people talking about COVID as being something dangerous were Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson. And even Dr. Fauci back then was saying nothing bad was going to happen with this.
It is weird how it kind of reversed that way,
Correct.
There was a great, what do they call the thing with the Southern strategy where they always say it was like some great reversal?
They flipped or whatever.
That happened with COVID, like the doomsday people.
And I don't know why.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
But my point being, like, I was one of those people who, I mean, they were quoting a 2% death rate, which is catastrophic when you multiply it by 350 million people. But it turned out to just be the denominator was way too small. They weren't capturing all the cases.
Okay, so we'll see what happens with this woman, and I'm glad you mentioned doing due diligence, because I'll acknowledge with her I've just seen this today, so it is possible that she's put a statement out there that says I was wrong about all this stuff. Everything I said back then I take back. I'm sorry that I participated in the greatest scam potentially in the history of the country. I'll allow her to correct the record in that way. If that's out there, then I'll listen to it. But I'm not encouraged by what I've seen initially. But okay, maybe you're a little bit worried about a Surgeon General who was into the COVID hysteria. Maybe you're a little bit worried about a defense secretary who might be a little bit too touchy. Maybe you're a little bit worried about a Treasury guy who used to work for Soros. However, I'm greatly encouraged by a transportation secretary nominee who is saying the obvious. We're not going to do any more diversity hire pilots, okay? You can at least get on the airplane and know that it is not some sort of DEI program that resulted in that pilot getting that job. You know anything about transportation secretary nominee, former Representative Sean Duffy?
This is going to transition into a clip that a lot of people are going to laugh at. Duffy is kind of the only reason I get invited on Fox News regularly. In 2023, I did a series for the New York Post about Soros, basically for my book, and they had me on, and it was supposed to just be a one-time interview, and they thought I did good enough to have me on pretty regularly. So and actually I worked with his daughter too. So the guys helped me a lot, and there was a very amusing moment ahead of the election I think you're going to play.
Well, you sent me this clip. There you are sitting on the stage. Who's the guy talking? Because it's
Alec Lace. He does a really good show. Not as good as this one, but a good show.
Thank you for clarifying. So he's a Fox News personality, and you've got now defense or a transportation secretary nominee named Sean Duffy. That's right. And he's just sitting there listening to this guy tell a joke about Kamala Harris, which makes you wince.
Yeah, and then there's the DEI press secretary telling you that the DEI vice president is the future of the party here. And so the future looks kind of dim for the Democrats here, but this is no shocker either. Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl. That's the way she got where she is. And the party's going downhill if it's in her hands.
That was tough. That was harsh.
Yeah, and then there's the DEI press
secretary. Well, did he get in trouble for that?
How dare you?
The second the episode ends, but you can see there's like a counter, like 15 feet from you that goes red once they're off the air. So the second it goes red, he goes, was that a mistake to say that? And then
he asked you, or who did he ask?
He said it to both of them. We're still sitting there. So they're both kind of like, listen, it's 7:00 on a Friday. Don't worry about it. It gets 50 million plus views on Twitter, pretty quickly. So it got seen. He hasn't been invited back, but he's on other shows still. So they didn't kick him off the network or anything. But I didn't even realize the camera was on my face. But it took me a second to realize what he had said, and it was so damn funny.
Well, that is my guest for the evening, Matt Palumbo of BonginoReport.com. You can find all the great content he manages over at BonginoReport.com. Or if you'd like, you can pick up his book on George Soros, the man behind the curtain, inside the secret network of George Soros. Find it on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Matt, thanks for stopping by. Is there anything else you'd like to plug before you're out of here?
I feel like it would be too annoying. The Soros book's the only one of mine that's actually sold, so I'll stick with that one. But no, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for your honesty and your contribution to the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great night, man. All right,
thanks.
I got plenty more for you if you're sticking around. Next, I'm going to talk Elon Musk. Let's see, before the show is finished, Elon Musk potentially buying MSNBC, of course. I want to get to Lauren Southern's testimony in the Canadian House of Commons, and then I got Hoax Hate for you, so stick around. But is Elon Musk actually serious about buying MSNBC? It's probably just a joke, but then again, buying Twitter was probably just a joke until it wasn't, and it actually happened. So the circumstance is actually ripe. MSNBC has suffered a ratings decline over the last month since the election. And even some progressives are angry with MSNBC after Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski recently met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago to try to repair their relationship. Rachel Maddow is getting a pay cut at MSNBC. She's going to be down to $25 million from $30 million a year for her now once a week show. So the situation at MSNBC is apparently so severe that Comcast, the parent company, is reportedly looking to sell the network altogether. So in response to this news, Babylon Bee puts out a satire article that says Elon Musk is considering buying MSNBC and converting it to a news network. And Elon Musk personally responded and said, crazy idea, it just might work. Now, Joe Rogan joined the conversation and said, well, hey, if you do it, I call Rachel Maddow's job. I'll keep everything the same. I'll wear the same outfit. I'll wear the same glasses. I'll even tell the same lies. And Elon Musk responded saying, deal. Now, the Right to Bear Memes account, I think, had the better idea. Just make it Joy Rogan. Seems like a more natural fit. I think Joe likewise makes a great artificial blonde. It's a good look for him. But Elon Musk is continuing to engage, he's continuing to indulge in this idea throughout the weekend. He posted that temptation meme, him trying to resist purchasing MSNBC. And then he was saying that the most likely outcome, or the most entertaining outcome, is the most likely. Again, responding to people talking about him potentially buying MSNBC. Now, Donald Trump Jr. responded to a news story mentioning this possibility. And he said, where's the Trump Jr. post? Yeah, he said, hey, Elon Musk, I have the funniest idea ever. Again, the idea being buying MSNBC. And Elon Musk responded to this personally saying, well, how much does it cost? Now, notably, that is the exact same response that he had for when he got the idea apparently to purchase Twitter. A guy tweeted at him, or he had tweeted out, I love Twitter. This was December 21st, 2017. A guy named Dave Smith responded saying, well, you should buy it then. And Elon Musk responded to him, well, how much is it? Again, the same idea in this case. How much? Well, I guess it's not exactly the same. Not how much is it, how much does it cost? Same idea, different phrasing. But are we going down a similar path here? All I hope, of course, is that we get a resolution that helps both the struggling MSNBC and saves the embattled InfoWars from its fate after the Sandy Hook settlement and all the liquidation and things that are going on over there. If we get Alex Jones on MSNBC, then America truly is back, I think. That will be an historic white pill moment. But it would seem that MSNBC is potentially trying to put itself out of business. Maybe they're trying to force the sale from Comcast. Who knows? Because they just can't help themselves. One piece of their coverage was legendarily awful this week, even for them. Now, recall, as discussed on Wednesday, Laken Riley's murderer, Jose Ibarra, was convicted in Athens, Georgia this week, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. This is the Venezuelan illegal immigrant Tren de Aragua guy who killed Laken Riley while she was out on a morning jog at the University of Georgia. Now, MSNBC covered the verdict and the sentencing, and they published, or the article published by MSNBC, it's by their legal analyst, Danny Cevallos. And the headline was, Laken Riley's killer never stood a chance. The subheading was, for all the political controversy surrounding Jose Ibarra, the outcome of this trial was never in doubt. The article reads in part, Riley's murder became a political rallying cry at this summer's Republican National Convention because Ibarra entered the country illegally in 2022. But for all the political controversy, the outcome of this trial was never in doubt. The verdict was going to be guilty. The sentence was going to be life without parole. For the defense, this was a hopeless case. The defense did it the best it could with bad facts. It almost surely knew it was going to lose. That's probably why it requested a bench or judge-only trial instead of a jury trial. Yes, because that's what made the case notable, of course. It was the political rallying cry around the Jose Ibarra trial. Not the fact that a young woman with her entire future ahead of her was taken from her family by someone who had no business being here, indeed had already committed crimes while he was here beyond his presence. It's the political rallying cry. That's the notable thing. The author also wrote about how the judge gave Jose Ibarra no breaks. Article continues in part. Of course, in Ibarra's case, the judge cut him no breaks, jury or no jury. In fairness, Athens Clarke County Superior Court Judge H. Patrick Haggard, who presided over the trial, didn't have that much to decide. Normally, the judges have a lot of sentencing options, criminal statutes. Provide for a mandatory minimum or a statutory maximum sentence, leaving a lot in between. Recall, Ibarra had a bench trial, not a jury trial at his request, so the entirety of the trial was under this judge's control. Verdict included, he gave Ibarra no breaks. Now, this headline, this story got a lot of backlash, and so MSNBC changed the headline. Now it reads, the guilt of Laken Riley's killer was never in doubt. So, yeah, as many noted in response to their original headline, well, you know who also never had a chance? Laken Riley, when this guy chased her down and fought her and beat her skull in for 20 minutes. That's who never had a chance, and perhaps the coverage ought to focus on that piece of the story rather than the legal proceeding, although, of course, due process is important. But unless you can demonstrate to me, first of all, I mean, if you're here illegally in the first place, the solution is get out. Due process questions are always important, but, you know, the process by which we now become responsible for this guy to take care of him for the rest of his life in prison, there's something of a question about the premise there. But I get it. Due process questions are important. Unless you can show me some sort of flagrant due process violation for this guy, that is not the focus. Even if you could show me that, that's not the focus of this story. The focus of the story is the young woman he killed brutally while he's here, unlawfully. He has no basis to be here. That's the story. But at least I guess MSNBC was browbeaten into a headline that better reflects reality. But who would MSNBC be, of course, without Joy Reid's trademarked insanity? Again, hopefully Joe Rogan or becomes the new Joy Reid, or Joy Rogan, whatever the name would be. After Trump's election, Joy Reid has been discussing severing ties with Trump-supporting friends or family. She said some of that in a TikTok video posted this week. She said, if you voted Trump, people are right to be afraid of you because you support fascism and autocracy, and you shouldn't expect your friends or family to enjoy Thanksgiving with you on friendly terms, you fascist.
People are rightfully alarmed. They have a reason to be alarmed. And if you would vote for that, people may not feel so confident that they're safe with you. This is not crazy. This is legitimate feelings of fear of you and a feeling that you might not be someone they could trust. If this thing goes way south, autocracies go south real fast and things get ugly and people get asked to do things and turn people in and point people out and turn on them. So if you think that you can vote for what people see as their destruction and then demand that they still are cool with you and kiki with you and have Thanksgiving with you, like, I think you're kind of missing the point of what people are upset about. They're afraid. And autocracy and fascism are things that are legitimate to be afraid of.
As though you can trust Joy Reid to defend your rights. As though you can trust Joy Reid to wield power fairly if she was given it. And the question is, what difference does the election actually make in this calculation? If you supported Trump last year, would Joy Reid have said then that it was fine to have Thanksgiving with your non-Trump supporting friends or family? Or would it have been fine for them to enjoy Thanksgiving with you? If you supported Trump in your first term, or his first term rather, would she have supported non-Trump people having Thanksgiving with you then? Because, of course, most Trump voters this time around are not first-time Trump voters. There are a lot of first-time Trump voters, but most are not. Most voted for him last time and potentially in 2016, too. So why is it so important to cut ties with them suddenly now, after an election in which we already knew tens of people were going to vote for this guy anyway? And the answer, presumably, is because now those people, those political enemies of Joy Reid, have some degree of political power. That's the only thing that's changed. They have an increased level of political power than they did before. Nothing about the philosophy has changed. Nothing about the way Joy Reid views them inherently has changed. It's really all the calculation that she's talking about here is if others have power, well, they have to be stopped. You shouldn't associate with them. Only Joy Reid and her friends should have power. Anything else is a threat to be dismantled. Joy Reid went on to say that America's fundamental nature is changing, and Trump supporters voted for that. Which is weird because I've heard Joy Reid and company many times say this country was founded by racist, patriarchal, old white men, and those foundations need to be undone and modernized. Now Trump, according to her, is making changes, fundamental changes to this country, and that's bad. We need fundamental changes to this country. No, not like that. So I would love for Joy Reid to explain what the best part about America's founding was. What are the traditional American values or principles or philosophies that you, Joy Reid, think are the best? And if the answer is, as I suspect it would not necessarily be, well, I think the protection of minority rights is great. I think the existence of God-given rights that are beyond political authority, democratic or otherwise, is great, which is really the heart of our country. It's recognizing God-given rights. It's not about how we select our leaders. But I suspect that Joy Reid would say something like, well, the great thing about this country is its democratic institutions. Great thing about this country is something about democracy. Well, then why are you so terrified and condemning the results of a democratic election? Again, America needs fundamental change. No, not like that. Now fundamental change is evil. America is great because of democracy. No, not like that. You can't vote for that guy. So I think we all know who the absolute worst relative to have at Thanksgiving would be. This Thanksgiving, in addition to my family and many other things, I'm thankful not to be having Thanksgiving with Joy Reid, but per her, that's exactly the arrangement that she wants anyway. I hope Joy Reid has an excellent Thanksgiving at the concentration camp, wherever that may be. Assuredly, she's on the train right now, headed there. Congratulations, Joy. You have earned it. But that brings me to the testimony of Lauren Southern before the House of Commons in Canada about Tenet Media. Of course, there's this ongoing controversy with Tenet Media, of which I am a party, as a formerly contracted person with the company. The same situation that Lauren Southern was in. Now, recall, Canadian Parliament is investigating the matter with a committee on Russian influence in Canada. Last I talked about the story a few weeks ago, the committee in the House of Commons had called Lauren Chen to testify. Lauren Chen appeared by video. She cited the ongoing investigation with the U.S. Department of Justice and said she's refusing to answer any questions until that investigation has concluded. Now, that committee also summoned Lauren Southern, who, as far as I'm aware, hasn't said anything publicly, not just about this incident or this issue, but I don't think she said much of anything publicly at all since the indictment dropped. Remember, the only people indicted in this case are the two Russians who supposedly are at the center of the plot. Lauren Chen and her husband Liam, as owners and operators of the company, they're not indicted. None of us as contractors, the people making the material for the company, none of us are indicted, myself included, Lauren Southern included. In fact, according to the FBI, we are victims. We were all duped. We were all deceived. I'm on record saying I don't believe that I was deceived. I think if there was deception, Lauren and Liam were deceived. We'll have to evaluate that claim later. That's just my personal opinion based on my own experience and based on my understanding of others on the inside. But unlike Lauren Chen, Lauren Southern opted to speak and answer questions before this committee, which she did for about an hour. And she used her opening statement to challenge the committee's premise that this is some massive Russian propaganda campaign. And her commentary about her experience, what I hear here, the experience mirrors my own. Nobody told us what to say. The claim that this is some massive propaganda effort is provably false.
I'll make a few points clear at the outset. At no point in my involvement with Tenet did I ever have knowledge of the allegations in the indictment. And two, the only person who ever had any creative control over my videos was me. No one from Tenet or anywhere else ever dictated what topics I covered or what opinions I held. It has been surreal for me to watch our government, experts, and media assert that scripts I would jot down in my notes app in a line at the grocery store were secretly part of a giant foreign influence campaign. Arguably, the largest actual impact on Canadians here has been the amount of tax dollars they've had to spend investigating this non-issue. Some in the media and this government seem to have concluded that the only reason a regular Canadian could possibly hold certain views that do not align with the current Liberal administration is because of pernicious, widespread Russian disinformation. I would like to propose an alternative hypothesis, and I know it may sound insane. I know this breaches the borders of conceivable thought, but maybe, just maybe, some Canadians consulted their own moral compass and decided they don't want this country funding foreign wars. Maybe they looked around them at the hospital lineups or housing prices and thought immigration might be a little high. Maybe they lost their business during lockdown and think, I worry about my freedoms in this country. Some in this government are hell-bent on drastically exaggerating the extent of foreign influence because they can't seem to stomach the idea that they might be wrong about something and that a growing majority of Canadians legitimately and organically oppose what they are doing. They simply can't conceive that they are becoming unpopular naturally, so there must be foul play at work.
She did a great job. I was really impressed, not only with her opening statement, but with her response to the questions. And frankly, if I was put in front of a government committee that way, not only would I be nervous, but I would be filled with rage based on the accusations they've made against me. And she maintained her composure and handled even the hostile politicians very, very well. But I will link the full testimony with the show sources in the description. If you're interested in this story and this controversy, I would listen to what she has to say. And again, her description of her experience, which I have not shared with her, we haven't spoken since all of this happened, but it really matches my own. She was given according to her testimony, she was given a market value budget to produce her material, which she did. She had very little interaction with management of the company on a regular basis. Same in my case. We were given a contract to provide a service, to provide a good. We did that. We kept to ourselves. And so long as we weren't breaching the contract, there weren't disputes with us. And I know I treated my obligations under that contract very seriously. I wanted to make sure that I was providing material as I was contracted to do. I know Lauren was doing the same. She was focused on making her material. She was not getting direction from other people. Neither was I. And for those who are skeptical and think that we have information that we're not showing, okay, I assure you, if the Canadian government or the U.S. federal government had information sufficient to charge either of us, they would love to. Canadian government would love to make an example of Lauren Southern. So far, they don't have a way to do that. The U.S. DOJ under Merrick Garland would love to make an example of all the Americans involved in this supposed foreign influence scheme, myself included. So far, they don't have the information to do that. How could this be? What evidence did they use to go after those Russians? Well, in part, they scraped our entire Discord server. So they've seen all of our communication over the last year. I assume they have everything. I don't think there are parts they didn't get, as far as I'm aware. They got a FISA warrant. They took all of our communication. They have nothing to charge any of the Americans involved in any of it. Same goes for Lauren Chen and her husband Liam, who are Canadian citizens and were living in the U.S. So, yeah, I get it. People think we should have done X, Y, and Z and handled this differently. If you think that we were in on some scheme, my biggest question is, where are the charges? And I suppose that question could come back to bite me. Play this clip in 3 months' time when the FBI has kicked down my door and has brought a bunch of nonsense charges against me. Maybe we'll never get there, because what's going to happen under Trump's DOJ? I don't know. Will this just go away? Are we going to see all of this investigation dropped? whatever happens, the only way we're going to get the other side of the story, the rest of the information that's missing, and this is my biggest gripe with that Canadian committee, is that they just take every allegation from the DOJ, known truth tellers at the Justice Department. They never lie. Everything in that indictment is just granted as true. You don't take one side of a story and believe it as a rule, but you certainly don't do it with the U.S. Justice Department. There's an entire other side of the story we have yet to hear. The only way we're going to get that, it's not going to be at trial, because these Russian guys who are charged, they're not coming to the U.S. to face trial and put up a defense for themselves, so you'll never see the claims evaluated in that way. The only way we're going to understand the other side of this is if and when the U.S. DOJ investigation goes away and Lauren and Liam are able to give their side of the story, to tell us, I hope they do it publicly, and explain what happened. And I'm still waiting patiently for that. I understand the situation they're in is very difficult. Same for Lauren Southern and all the rest of the people. So I'm not going poking and prodding, but I hope that they're able to speak soon. And I appreciate that. I know she was compelled to do this. I sympathize with the circumstance. I'm very sorry for the circumstance, but I thought Lauren Southern handled herself very well. And I appreciate that she didn't have the courage just to show up and do something minimally adequate, which of course would have been defensible too. But I appreciate that she took the extra step of putting these people on blast, because they should be, because the truth is not on their side. So good job to Lauren, and I hope she's doing well. But that brings us to, it's time for Hoax Hate, of course.
And now, the nobody saw it happen, but it's totally a product of Trump's America hoax hate crime of the week.
Ah, shit, it's backwards. You think they'll notice?
Of course, the most famous hoax hate crime in the history of hoax hate crimes reached its legal conclusion this week, at least in the criminal component. At least almost certainly. As I mentioned in the video, maybe this has another appeal angle. I don't know, but it's highly likely that it's done. Jussie Smollett had his conviction overturned at the Illinois Supreme Court on due process grounds on Thursday. The state Supreme Court found that the state of Illinois had acted improperly when it made a non-prosecution agreement with Jussie under Kim Foxx's office, the Cook County prosecutor, and then prosecuted him anyway with a special prosecutor. And I posted a full video analyzing the decision and all the reasoning yesterday, so go find that if you'd like my take on it. It's on my channel or on my website homepage, mattchristiansenmedia.com, or, of course, mattis.gay. Summary is, I think the Illinois State Supreme Court's decision, painfully, is actually probably legally correct. There are serious due process concerns about how the state handled the prosecution of Jussie Smollett. Again, offering a non-prosecution agreement and then revoking that and prosecuting him anyway. Doesn't mean Jussie's a good guy or he's innocent. Far from it. He's not. He did it. We all know he did it. There's plenty of evidence. He did it. What this means is that Kim Foxx's office needs to be investigated. Kim Foxx is on her way out as Cook County prosecutor. Kim Foxx probably belongs in jail with Jussie because the way this was handled appears to be insanely corrupt. He was given a sweetheart non-prosecution agreement because he and his family are in direct communication with Kim Foxx, and there's all sorts of friendliness. There's a non-prosecution agreement offered, and then later they back off it because a separate court-appointed special prosecutor determines, no, that was not handled correctly. The whole legal dispute is a little more complicated than I've described. Again, video posted yesterday if you want the full analysis on it. But that's the end of the Jussie Smollett criminal saga. It was very costly for him. You know, if he thinks, I noticed that Jussie has not spoken publicly for this supposed win he's achieved. He's awfully quiet about it. And that's because I think he realizes this is, even if it is technically a win in court, there's no win about this for him. But we'll see if there are any further developments later on. In Cape Coral, Florida Gulf Coast University professor Peter Ndiangui is he's building a new home, or he's renovating an existing home. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but there's work being done on a home that he owns. As far as I gather, he doesn't live there. At least I don't think so. But anyway, there's work going on at this house. Someone breaks in, damages the doors and the windows, bright red paint wrote a racial slur on the wall. Now, it's blurred, it's censored, so I can't tell what it says. I believe it says F the ends, but here is the local reporting on the story.
Dr. Peter Dianui told me about the moment he stepped foot into this Cape Coral home.
I was traumatized. I was shocked.
That's his reaction to what someone did to the property he is building.
Oh my God, it was so scary, Olivia. It was so shocking.
Paint splattered, glass shattered, massive holes in walls, doors and windows broken, and derogatory writing on walls that we are blurring. With the message on the wall, he thinks it's a hate crime.
I empathize with people with this mindset of hate crimes. I know they're there. I know they're in our midst. But I do hope that we can win them to know that no matter what your difference is, you'll gain more by being my friend than being my enemy.
All that remains of the suspect are bright red shoe marks from paint all over the inside of the home.
The guy came hitting. He must have been very angry. For what, I don't know. Every room, every one of them. He went all over. He was on the rampage.
Okay. That report was earlier in the week. This local station broke the story on Wednesday. Later in the week, the same reporter released security camera footage from the neighbors showing several people believed to be the hateful vandals committing the act.
You just heard another suspect coming out of the home and telling the person to stop. I'm assuming because they were making too much noise. Hate crime charges will potentially come later. Now, the mission is to find the people responsible. Here's what we know from the neighbor's surveillance video. It was 3 to 4 people. Most of them have backpacks on and are using bikes to get around, and the vandalism took place in broad daylight, Saturday, November 9th, between 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
So these racist vandals are doing this in the middle of the day. In fact, they're loudly communicating outside without any effort to be sneaky at all. The report for the damage total was up to $100,000. And this week, many of the professor's students and other community members went to fix all of that house damage, and it looks like they were successful in that effort. Now, police were originally criticized for, or they had originally called this incident a criminal mischief incident, and people were outraged because clearly this is a hate crime. Now the police chief has caved and says, okay, I'm going to call it a hate crime. You win. But there is, of course, a crucial piece missing there. You heard the reporting say, well, charges may be forthcoming, but we don't know who to charge. Right. There's no suspect. There's no person of interest. There's no idea who did this. So we somehow know it was obviously someone with a hateful motive who did this when the person who did it is still unidentified. Okay. Well, in fairness to the professor, I did my due diligence. I don't see any sort of GoFundMe or any other obvious fundraising attempt, but often these incidents are insurance fraud schemes. In the case of a college campus, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that there's some sort of progressive political angle to this, trying to get progressive social points, sympathy points. Whatever happened, nobody broke into this guy's house just to write F the ends on the wall because they hate black people. That is not a thing that happened. There's a missing piece to this story, and the police chief is wrong to buckle to the pressure that demands that he call it a hate crime. Be curious to see what comes of those footprints, those shoe prints from the red paint. But keep an eye on this story. This is not what it appears to be. In an update to the hoax hate story from last week that I discussed regarding the mayor of Colorado Springs, his name is Yemi Mobalabe. He is the first black mayor of Colorado Springs, elected last year. Now, as I mentioned, 3 people were federally indicted for faking a hate incident involving one of his campaign signs. They wrote the N-word, likewise in red paint, and this time it was spray paint. They wrote the N-word on one of his campaign signs, and they lit a cross on fire in front of it. And this was all an effort to make the mayor appear like a victim of a racial hate crime and to drum up support for him in the campaign. Now, according to the report last week, as I discussed, the reporting said that the mayor had absolutely nothing to do with this hoax.
Prosecutors say their motivation was to make it look like someone was trying to intimidate the future mayor in hopes of gaining more votes in his favor. Mayor Mobolade himself is not involved.
So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I would pat myself on the back, but really anyone with a functioning brain knew that was not true. There's no way that there's this giant hoax hate effort like this on behalf of the mayor, and the mayor actually has nothing to do with it. His supporters are so enthusiastic for this guy to win the mayor's office in Colorado Springs that they're doing these elaborate hate hoaxes on his behalf without his involvement. Obviously, that didn't happen, and now there's reporting this week to confirm that's not what happened. Additional reporting through the Daily Wire this week says that according to an FBI official speaking with the Daily Wire, the Justice Department refused to pursue charges against the mayor in this case for racial and political reasons, even though the facts probably support it. So communications obtained by investigators show that the mayor was in fact in close and regular contact with one of the guys who did the hoax, Derek Bernard, who's now charged. Mobolade, the mayor, now mayor, at the time he was campaigning, he also lied to the FBI, telling them that he had no contact with Bernard, though the FBI has his text messages. So that claim is contrary to the message records. The FBI referred Mobolade, the mayor, to the Justice Department for charges for lying to the FBI, and the DOJ refused. Instead, the Justice Department arranged for Mobolade. Is it Mobolade or Mobolade? I'm probably pronouncing it. Mobolade, whatever his name is. They arranged for him to do a third interview. So instead of charging him for lying, they said, wouldn't you like to do a third interview where maybe you say things a little bit differently? And he did. During that interview, most of his answers consisted of, I do not recall, according to the official quoted in the story. This was contrary to his interview answers from the previous two interviews where he denied involvement very strongly. This Justice Department or FBI official said. The DOJ then told the FBI it would not charge him with false statements. The initial response from the Justice Department, again, before they did the third interview, was, we can't indict the first black mayor of Colorado Springs. This according to the DOJ source. In my experience, if anyone had been in that position, they would have been charged with lying to a federal agent. And that's not the extent of the apparent corruption here. The press release put out by the Justice Department said that Bernard, the guy who's now charged with doing the hoax, had sent a text, quote, to other defendants that he was mobilizing his squad for black ops. In fact, the message was sent to the mayor, then candidate, now mayor himself, who officially isn't a defendant, but should be, according to this reporting. And so the Daily Wire asked the DOJ about that misrepresentation. Why did you say that he sent this text message to other defendants when in fact he sent the text to the mayor himself, which directly involves the mayor, contrary to initial reporting that said the mayor had no involvement at all, and crucially, contrary to the mayor's own claim that he had no communication with this guy, when in fact, per your own evidence, he did, which means he lied to the FBI, which means you should charge him. Instead of explaining all of that to the reporter inquiry, the FBI and the DOJ, they just stealth edited their press release, and they just removed the phrase to other defendants. So he sent a text to someone, who knows who it was, except they know who it was, that said, we're mobilizing for black ops. So no response to the reporter's question, though, of course, they understood the reporter's question to be valid to the extent they edited their press release later in apparent acknowledgement of the validity of that reporter's question. And we're just going to pretend, again, to the prior topic, if you believe what the DOJ says without any questions, I don't know what to tell you. You got to get a healthier skepticism. But for now, it appears that Mobolade, check my name again, Mobolade, in my notes I wrote Mobolade, but I guess that's my racism showing, my cultural insensitivity. seems the mayor himself will not be charged. So the question will be whether Colorado Springs voters will decide to recall him or try to do that. We'll see how long he lasts in office given this indictment. But with that, we'll call it a stream. We'll catch up with Super Chats before I get out of here. Looks like we're good on Odyssey and D Live. I didn't mean to neglect you guys, but thanks for watching over there. Over on Rumble, Evan 626 says that ramen head is an anti-Semitic trope.
I can't believe that someone would have so much like hate in their heart.
Okay, so for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I guess it is. But what about Chad Kroeger, the Nickelback frontman? Is it anti-Semitic for him? I don't know. I just know they have the same hair. But thank you for supporting the show. Let me give a quick refresh over on YouTube and Tippy. Let's see. Esoterica Unbound. Did we read this one? I know I owed Esoterica because I missed one earlier. So if I did read this one, if Nuck and I read this one, I apologize for the double up, but I owe you one, so I got to be careful. Esoterica Unbound says NYPD are apathetic about the deadly chaos being inflicted on the public, but whine all over the media when one of their own gets attacked. Unless you're one of them, they are not your friend. Yeah. It's not, like Daniel Penny is exactly the kind of guy that I wish we had more of. Like a friendly, he has every trait a man should have. He's a nice guy. He's friendly. He cares about his community. But if the moment demands it, he's capable of stepping up and doing awful things that are required. I say awful, not because I think that he did anything wrong. I'm saying because it's not a pleasant part of your day to have to physically restrain an insane hobo who's on drugs trying to attack people. But such is the role of a quality man. The world has inherent dangers. You have to be out there and prepared to, if you listen to the interview, he talks about the need to protect all the women and children who were in that car. That's exactly what he did. The solution to our problems is creating more of the sort of guy that Daniel Penny is. If we had 1 million Daniel Pennys walking out there, we'd have one hell of a society. I can tell you that much. How we achieve that is easier said than done, of course. But if we had nothing but Daniel Pennys out there, Daniel Pennys they're doing every job in your community, including police officer. If the ranks of the police officers are filled with nothing but Daniel Pennys, this is also not a problem. If the prosecutor's office has Daniel Pennys instead of Alvin Bragg's, these charges are never brought. Again, where there are ambiguities in the law, and I don't think this is such a case. I think the law is pretty squarely on Daniel Penny's side. Where there are ambiguities in the law, though, edge cases, again, it's a question of to whom do you want to defer? Do you want to defer to the guy who's clear-minded, morally courageous, defended his community, served this country, is willing to talk to police because he's an honest man? Or do you want to defer to the guy who's been arrested something like 50 times in the last decade, is high out of his mind, has an open warrant, recently punched an old woman in the face and broke her jaw? To whom do we defer? Where there's ambiguity, to whom are you going to defer? Until we get rid of prosecutors who think, well, count me in on the K2 consuming hobo guy who's threatening to kill everyone. Until we get those people out, we won't get the society full of Daniel Pennys. That's true. Imperia says, I feel like if it weren't true, you would just say she's not Jewish. What I'm saying is who my wife is or is not your business or anyone else's business. She's not a public person. I don't owe you an explanation for all of this specific biographical detail about my wife. And again, I'll tell you, the allegations that my wife has some kind of role in recent events or that my wife is involved in some kind of way, it's pushed by people who are extremely bitter about the way that this developed because they feel like it will cause some sort of damage to me or my family or my stream, my livelihood, whatever. I don't owe anyone an explanation for specific traits about my wife or what her specific beliefs are, or what her family history is or any of that stuff. If you think I do, I don't know what show you're tuning into. This show has never been about my wife. It's not going to be about my wife going forward. And I'll emphasize the only reason that my wife has now been thrust into some supposed role in this is because a particular person thinks that it can be weaponized if accusations are made against her. My point is, I'm not going to dignify the accusations with some sort of detailed breakdown of how they are or are not false. They are irrelevant, and they're made by a person who thinks that it will do damage to this show. And it's very unfortunate. Again, if my wife had some sort of nefarious role, why were the people pushing this claim friends with my wife for years and years and years? Why were the people pushing this claim? Why do they have years-long detailed text message threads detailing the most intimate details of their lives with each other? Why? Why is all of that betrayed? Why would someone throw a friend under the bus for personal advancement? These are the questions that need to be asked. You know, my wife's personal characteristics are irrelevant. And the insistent pushing at that is done by people who apparently think that people who will weaponize anything they can to their own personal advantage. That's all this is. Like, oh, what hammer could I grab to try to do damage? That's the hammer. Doesn't matter what friends you throw under the bus. Doesn't matter the truth of the statements. It's a shame. You know, that the whole thing sucks. So that's it. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. Thank you, Imperious. Injured Guardian says the word niche is pronounced niche. Damn it. No, I like niche. But let's consult Google, the ultimate authority. Well, they're on your side.
Niche.
But I hate that pronunciation. I like niche. And according to Merriam-Webster,
niche.
There you go. Also,
niche.
Or
niche.
Niche is definitely, I think we'd agree that niche is out. But meet me on niche. Thank you, Injured Guardian. Griff Nizzle says, the jig is up, Comrade 6. Ping 2 is a crypto Jew confirmed. But someone who was supposedly good friends with her for years, a particular person, Simps for Israel, also confirmed this season has jumped the shark. Yeah. I mean, why is this made into a concern? It's made into a concern because it's perceivably a weapon. What can I do? What can I do to get Matt or damage Matt? Oh, I know. I'll make some accusations against his wife that she can't even defend herself from because she's not a public person. That's what's so disgusting about all of this, to be honest. Like, it's not just the betrayal of a friend. It's knowing that friend is not a public person who has no means by which to defend herself. Okay? Who does that? Frankly, it's sick. And obviously you can tell it's bothersome to me. It's bothersome to me that people you let into your life on a personal level, because you think you're friends, you think you have a close relationship, the second that they think they can use something, that they can weaponize something against you because they're bitter about this or that, they'll do it. You know, all this is a knife on the table. Oh, I know. I'm going to grab that knife and try to stab. That's it. Doesn't matter what the truth is. Doesn't matter. Loyalty doesn't matter. Friendship doesn't matter. Common decency doesn't matter. It's just scumbag behavior. And it sucks. Knuckle Hunkybox says, damn it, instead of football curious, I should have said I'm a member of the NFL GB. Hold on. It was funny, so I've already botched it. Damn it, instead of football curious, I should have said I'm a member of the NFL LGBT community. That was great. Thank you.
Wow.
Could have also said bi-week curious. This is why I bring Knuckle Hunkybuck in, because his wit is unrivaled. Gutter Biscuit says, finally able to catch you live. Keep up the good work, Matt. Well, thank you very much. Dell the Redneck says, my hoax hate of the week is the neighbors for accusing Maud of breaking into their house. That was a complete lie. The window was unlocked. She didn't have to break in. I'm sure Maud has broken into her fair share of double wides down North Carolina way. But Dell, it's been my pleasure to hear from you through the calls once again. I appreciate it. And I hope to hear from you soon. All the best to you and your family. Says Colton Regal says, I liked how the movie reviews provided a non-political segment for the show, but I understand why the bid is gone. Perhaps a Bible passage of the week. Well, it's possible that there are like non-political asides that come back into the show. I agree. It was fun for that purpose. And I maybe I'll bring elements like that back again. For the time being, because I don't have the right person to do a movie review with, and I think it functions best as a back and forth, and because given the various stresses going on with the shakeups, I just don't have the time to put into the movie review in the way I did before. I mean, there's always time depending on how you prioritize. But what I'm saying is the amount of time that required seems hard to justify given the new strains that have been applied. So it's possible I come back to it. Bible passage, even though obviously I'm interested in, I don't know that I have the requisite knowledge or capability yet. But if you're interested in my journey into faith and my acceptance of Jesus Christ and my adoption of the term Christian, you can check out my Bible study weekly on Friday nights at 9 Eastern. It's open to the public. You can join by Zoom. You can participate that way, and you can listen to the Bible study podcast as well. mattchristiansenmedia.com/Bible-study. It's linked on the homepage. mattis.gay if you'd like more convenient access. But for now, that'll be where I keep my Bible study stuff, and my faith journey stuff will be through the Bible study separate podcast feed. By the way, you don't have to participate live, I should mention. If you want to listen, and there's a great group that participates in the discussion every week. I've got a Bible study leader, and then we all talk. So it's a fun thing to listen to. Also, if you just want to participate passively, there are podcast feeds for the Bible study as well. Injured Guardian says, wait, you skipped my 2 postscripts on the other super chat. Well, thank you for catching me. Let me see if I can find it, or maybe they didn't. Well, we might have a flaw in the system, Injured Guardian. I think if I recall correctly, it might have been you in the past who we had this issue with before, because I'm not seeing them in my aggregator that puts all the super chats in the same spot for me. But let me see if they show up in the YouTube end here. Let me go find them. So yeah, the last ones I have are the niche one or niche. So I got that one. And then Injured Guardian, the one I have before that, are from streams ago. So if I missed any chats, I actually don't see them. So I'm not sure they processed. You'll have to maybe double check and make sure you weren't charged or anything for chats that didn't go through, because I don't have any record of those. But my apology for potential error there. But I think we're all set then. Let me give a quick refresh. And thank you, Injured Guardian. I appreciate your support for the show. And with that, I think we're all set. So we will call it a show there. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Thanks to the live chatters and super chatters for making the live show a success. If you're if you're listening on demand later, thank you kindly as well for supporting the show. Much appreciated. Thanks to my guest, Matt Palumbo, content manager at BonginoReport.com. Thanks to producer Tim for his help this evening, as always, as well. If you'd like more to listen to, again, head on over to the website, mattchristiansenmedia.com. Look for the podcast page. You will find not just the video show, but you'll find all the audio feeds as well, if you prefer to listen to your podcasts through an audio feed. Everything else show-related, mattchristiansenmedia.com is where you find it, or mattis.gay if you prefer brevity. I'm back on Sundays and Wednesdays, of course, including this Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Hope to see you then. If not, have a happy and safe Thanksgiving. A great night and a great week.
But